Well, thank you. It's fabulous to have the opportunity to take you on 2 virtual tours today, exploring our remarkable wildlife and beautiful landscapes. For those of you that have not come across Australian Wildlife Journeys before, we're a collective of wildlife tourism operators that focus on responsible or in the wild encounters. We have 13 members located all across the country, and we cater to all different holiday types. It could be 4-wheel drive safaris, it could be bird watching, diving, it could be wildlife photography trips. It's really providing those avenues for your clients that are passionate about wildlife and nature to connect with our local ecosystems in small groups, and of course with expert guides that really bring these local ecosystems to life. The other thing that we're really proud of is connecting conservation and wildlife tourism. And we do this through various ways called conservation actions. These are small things that we can do out on tour every day with our guests that make a difference to these ecosystems. This could be things like citizen science, where we're collating data and passing that on to the scientific community about what wildlife species we're seeing. It could be tree planting, it could be marine debris tracking or removal. It's all about these small actions that we can take that make a difference. Look, today we've got a real treat. We're going to cover 2 regions of Australia. We're going to start off in the beautiful Riverland region of South Australia, and owner Tony Charlie of Murray River Trails is going to take us on an exploration of this region that combines our most famous river, the River Murray, with these beautiful outback landscapes, with 2 experiences, the Murray River Safari, which is a new product, and also the Murray River Walk. But now we're going to head to Christmas Island, and owner Lisa Preston is going to take us on a tour of beautiful Christmas Island, famous bird watching there, amazing diving, but it's the red crab migration that fascinates people from all over the globe. So can't wait to hear more about that now. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us.
Hi folks, welcome to Christmas Island, and thanks for joining me while we have a flyover and point out some of our wonders that you can experience during your visit. The island is quite rugged coastline. We aren't well known for our beaches. This bit of footage here has us over the blowholes area on Christmas Island. As you can see, very rugged, a lot of old coral that's been boosted up out of the ocean, and very weathered. We've got a beautiful fringing reef around the island, stunning hard corals. That's our beautiful little grotto that you can have a dip in and join the fish. This is an aerial view of Flying Fish Cove. So this is our main swimming beach on the island. It's got some fantastic snorkeling and amazing diving right off the beach. You can see the township. It's a little bit like an old mining town. You can see the industrial infrastructure on the wharf there. So our phosphate mine is still running. So we're a little bit like an old mining town with an bit of old Singapore. That said, there's plenty of native forest still in situ on the island, untouched, harbouring many of our native species on the island, and with our well-maintained tracks quite easy to access. Got a frigate's eye view over the island. This is one of our tour vehicles that we show guests around with. It's a comfortable Prado. We've also got a 11-seater high ace van that's also 4-wheel drive. This section through here is our beautiful Dales area. It's our natural spring area on the island. There's a layer of basalt from part of our old volcano that it was laid down many millions of years ago through this section of the island, and it traps the water on the surface, creating the springs. Most of our walks and trails on the island quite canopied, so you're not out in the full blazing sun, which makes it quite comfortable for walking around and getting out and about. Here's our stunning waterfall on the island. You can have a little bit of a shower under it. It's not really a swimming waterfall, a bit more like a shower. But it runs all year round. So even when we've had some of our driest periods, you can still go for a swim under the waterfall or a shower under the waterfall. Some of the beautiful colours of the bougainvillea on the island, mixing in with the native species. So this is our white sandy beach on the island, Dolly Beach. And these guys are the real show stealers on Christmas Island. I know everybody knows us for the red crabs, but These guys just blow people's minds. They've got their thing in their head about a little hermit crab that they may have had as a child, and you see these guys and they're bigger than your shoes. So you can see people just trying to adjust to the new reality. They're the largest land crab in the world. Christmas Island's one of the last safe harbours for them. We actually protect them on the island. They were a source of food at one stage, but they're so slow reproducing that the locals leave them alone now. Here's one of our amazing red crabs that everybody knows us for. These guys are our little forest managers. So they eat the leaf litter, as you can see these little critters doing. They aerate the soil with their burrowing, and they manage the density of the forest as well. So by what they eat and leave sort of determines what's able to germinate. And they've designed the forest to suit themselves effectively, and everything's had to kind of adapt around that. So we've got a bit of the actual annual migration going on here. So there's a few key spots around the island that we generally highlight to guests once they've arrived, where the crabs are moving at peak times, because it does change day to day depending on what phase of the migration that they're on. They generally like moving in the cooler parts of the day, so in the morning or late afternoon. And if it's raining and overcast all day, they can generally migrate all day during that. You can see we close our roads. There's a lot of road traffic management goes on during that period because they aren't the smartest of little creatures, so they will run under your tyres. So we try and minimise any vehicle traffic around them. That's part of the crab bridge there. So we've only got one of those on the island at the moment, but it's very effective and a fantastic place to go and watch the crabs. So this is actually a female spawning here. So the crab migration takes about 4 to 5 weeks, the whole cycle of the breeding cycle, but it's actually only this bit here that we can predict because we know they use very specific phases of the moon and the neap tide. Generally that's around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, so it's quite an early start. Each female has up to about 450,000 eggs under her there. So if it's a good year and all of those babies are washed around out at sea and they make their way back, we start having bits of footage like this, which is the baby crabs swarming back. So they tend to come in as a little megalop. We'll see a little bit of that footage a bit further along, and they'll hang around in the shallows around the foreshore areas on the island for a couple of days until they do their final molt, which changes them into the shape of a little red crab. So you can see here, these are the little megalops, or what I call like a little jelly spider. It's a bit hard to see on the footage, but they've still got a little bit of like a prawn tail, and it's amazing to watch them move around in the water using that. So it does affect our life when we have a really good return on the island. As you can see here, the residents of our Flying Fish Cove area are pretty much locked inside their houses during the morning as the baby crabs come back through. We've got some stunning coastline around the island. It's quite rugged. The seabird life is really prolific. Like, it's not often you can look up to the sky and not see a seabird. The wildlife photographers are loving Christmas Island because our wildlife is so approachable. Nothing's really ever been hunted, and so they're not wary of us at all and quite happily sit there and get their photos taken. Got some amazing marine life on the island. The diving is spectacular. We've got some great drop-offs around the island, and the dive operators are quite small, so the maximum will ever be on a boat would be 18, and they try not to crowd any of the areas on the island. So they have an unwritten rule: if one of the operators is already at a location, the other one will move on to somewhere else so their guests aren't crowded. And so you have this opportunity with a small group to really have a good experience with the wildlife. We've got our whale sharks here. They come into the island about late November or mid-November, really, depending on when the wet season starts. They think the pheromones from the red crabs bring them into the island, and at that migration phase, and they can hang around for about 6 months. So we're very lucky in that regard. Christmas Island's accessible from Perth currently with 2 flights a week on a Tuesday and a Friday. And our most popular package is actually a 14-night package where we combine Christmas and Cocos together, our neighbouring island. It has a lot of different experiences to Christmas Island, but they make a great team to visit as a dual island option.
Thanks, Lisa, for that amazing tour of Christmas Island. I'm Tony, and I'm going to take you to the mighty Murray River of South Australia, where the outback meets an amazing river system that's travelled through 2,500 kilometres of Australia on its way through to the Riverland, a beautiful meandering landscape where you will tour with us and stay on houseboat accommodation. It's an amazing place when it comes to boating because you get incredible perspectives of how this landscape was formed. It's river cliffs which stand tall either side of the river valley, which runs through an amazing river delta. We love walking in these landscapes. We love revealing the forests and the woodlands that lie either side of the river. Walking slows us down and gives us the opportunity to be interrupted by wildlife, to meet new people, and obviously to achieve some physical well-being over the course of 4 days and 3 nights on our walking tour. Our wildlife includes koalas. There's some spectacular bird watching in this landscape, starting with the majestic Australian pelican, a bird that visits the inland to fish, a sign that there are fish in this river system, a bird that can breed on the Coorong and on the Lake Eyre system. But when we see it, it's here for feeding in small squadrons, flying in squadrons. When they open their amazing bill, you'll see how successful they are at fishing. We're going to be touring in a wetland of international importance. There are 180 bird species in this landscape, and you're going to see many of them. It's important for endangered species like the Murray cod, like the Regent Parrot, like the southern bellfrog. And some of those you're going to hear at night in the spring. Being water in a dry landscape provides a really, really important resource for feeding birds, especially when the river levels rise and produce, a smorgasbord of food for spoonbills, 2 species that we see, the yellowbill and the royal nest along the river. And they've got that wonderful feeding behaviour. Australian cormorants, we've got 4 species in this region. This is the little pied. The Australian darter, another fish-eating bird that nests in the native willows and the introduced willows along the riverbanks. A sign that, again, there are fish in this river system. In the springtime, the air comes to life, and the sounds of the valley include the clamorous reed warbler, noisily getting about, making its nests in the reeds, soon to be followed by the Australian bee eater, or the rainbow bee eater. Comes from northern Australia down onto the river country to nest in the cliffs. This is a spectacular bird, and you'll see it flying throughout the valley. You'll see it out even on these ephemeral lakes. And the ephemeral lakes are really a symbol of floodplains on the Murray system. They fill when the river rises. They provide a smorgasbord of food for a range of wildlife, including our iconic Australian red kangaroo. Water is life in the outback, and a range of water birds come to these small oases that are teeming with life. Kangaroos, pelicans, emus, several migratory species that visit the area. The largest of the Australian birds, the emu, nests in this region, and there's the father emu looking after its chicks, having sat on the eggs for up to almost 2 months. Very dutiful, a very dutiful parent, I should say. And the chicks make for spectacular photography, so you must bring a camera when you visit this region. We've got a range of parrots, starting with a mulga parrot here, red rump parrots, regent parrots, Australian ringnecks, yellow rosellas, and so on. They really are iconic of Australia. The red-necked avocet, again, a shallow water feeder, loves the lakes and will feed in large flocks. Smaller wader birds such as the red-capped plover, the black-fronted dotterel, and some of our pied stilts. And then we see species from the northern hemisphere travelling thousands of kilometres to feed on these lakes or to feed before returning to the northern hemisphere to breed. Redneck stints, sharp-toed sandpipers and greenshanks, just to name a few. Pelicans are everywhere, and wherever there are fish, you're going to see them. So there's plenty of chances to see this iconic bird. Our black swans are unique to Australia, nesting on the ephemeral lakes and on the margins of the river as well. And back to the river, it really is flanked, as you can see, by mighty red gum forests, which provide a whole range of habitats for species. We will journey on the river system on our pontoon cruiser, an open boat that makes for great viewing of the cliffs, but we also slow down and we paddle through the tranquil backwaters early in the morning. This is a lovely way to truly connect with nature. In silence, the only sounds you hear are the paddles and the bird life. One of the highlights that is often referred to by many of our guests, it's a great way to safari on the river system. One of the special activities that you'll do over 3 days and 2 nights on safari, or as you saw earlier, you can spend 4 days and 3 nights walking through this landscape on our walk tour. The Sacred Kingfisher, one of my special birds, a small kingfisher, obviously smaller than the largest of the kingfishers, which is the kookaburra, and you will hear them on tour. The lace monitor, very active in the warmer months and often seen climbing the trunks of trees in search of bird nests and obviously robbing those nests of eggs. Here we've got the spectacular Regent Parrot. I wanted to mention it because it's vulnerable. And we think there are an estimated 400 pairs. It's just holding its own at the moment. But when you see it, you have seen something very, very special. We'd love to see you come and join us on a tour, a Murray River Safari or a Murray River Walk. Check us out on murrayrivertrails.com.au and we'd love to host you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our live Q&A. I'm here with John, Lisa and Tony, who you've just seen in the virtual fam. So thank you for joining me, guys. If you have any questions for the 3 panelists today, please pop them in the chat. Lisa is from Christmas Island and Tony is from Murray River. So yes, please, you can ask generally about the collection and we can go to John, or individually about the 2 destinations that we've just seen on film. We did have one come in already, I believe. Frank was asking about the baby crab migration on Christmas Island and what time of year does that take place, Lisa?
The baby crabs are actually the return after the major migration, and that is usually very hard to predict because people don't really take in the fact that the crabs go through that whole process of and mating and dropping their eggs in the sea, and not every year do they return. So you've got a prediction of about 3 weeks after the spawning event that the baby crabs are mature enough to start washing back as what we call little megalots, and they take a couple of days to molt that shell, and they literally pop into a little red crab, and that's when they start their migration back to the forest. So it's about 3 weeks after the spawning dates that there may be a return, but it's been pretty spectacular when they do come back.
Okay, great, thank you. And Tony, we have one for you from Frank as well. He's asking about mosquitoes on the river tours. Is that something that visitors need to be aware of? Is malaria a problem there, or could be a problem?
Yeah, certainly very, very low risk with born viruses, that type of thing. Yeah, so we always supply, obviously, repellents if we're going to be doing any outdoor activity in the evening. And so that really is the only time of day that there would be any concern. And usually, if we're having a high river and there's a lot of water around, so there's a bit of mosquito breeding, but very low risk of any mosquito-borne viruses.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Frank is also, oh no, sorry, it was Elaine's asking about the Murray River tours as well. She's asking, where do they start from?
So historic town of Renmark in South Australia. It's the first irrigation settlement in Australia, home of the paddle steamers, about 3.5 hours self-drive from Adelaide, or about an hour and a half self-drive from Mildura in Victoria.
Okay, great, thanks. Elaine's also just asking for clarification on the red crab spawning, Lisa. Just wanted to know, did you say that it happens on a full moon?
No, it happens actually 5 days before a new moon, give or take 2, depending on the phase of the moon. Like, they're actually really quite specific, and it needs to be a neap tide. So it's not like a high tide or a low tide. It's that neap tide, which conveniently is about 3:30 in the morning. So it's generally set the alarm for 3 o'clock and get down into position and watch all the females come down and drop their eggs into the sea. Just in terms of the time of the year that happens, our monsoon or wet season kicks in generally mid-November. And so the crabs can go through that migration spawning process anywhere between mid-November to January. And it all depends. And obviously each year the dates change as to when that happens, because it's based on the phase of the moon. And also we've got to look at some of those longer range weather predictions as well, like the La Nina El Nino events, and also the negative and positive Indian Ocean dipoles also play havoc with whether our rains start early or late. Sometimes the spawning's gone as late as mid-January, which is very rare, but it can push out to that if we're unsuccessful with the weather kicking the event off earlier.
Okay, great, thank you. And John, one thing I was asking across the whole Australian Wildlife Journeys collection, are there any opportunities for visitors to get involved with any conservation efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the most exciting aspects of the whole collective is this whole unified effort across all our members to get more travellers and make it easier for advisors to recommend these type of experiences and group them all together. So we've got a range of different options for people. They can get involved this winter with tree planting in Victoria with a Kidna Walkabout, which we're really excited about. They've designed a koala recovery experience that's running for 2 or 3 days over July and August, just outside of Melbourne. So that's one that we've had strong interest in. And I guess the broader opportunity is this whole new trend of citizen science, where we are helping a lot of the national park and landscape boards in tracking what animals that we're seeing, particularly those that are quite rare or vulnerable. So it's a great way to get kids involved with their phones or their laptops or with their iPads, and we make it really easy for the guests on board to help track these iconic species with the guide. So that's a really fun one that everyone can get involved with.
Okay, brilliant, fantastic news. We've also got questions about solo travellers here on the Murray River Safari. Do you have rates for people travelling alone? Tony?
We still do on our both on our safari tour and on our Murray River Walk tour. We have a rate for a solo traveller not willing to share a double room. There's a rate there. Also, there's the normal rate if you are willing to share on a same gender basis. So, and yeah, our rates are all on our website.
Great, thank you. Angela has got a question for Lisa. On Christmas Island, are there boat tours around the island that look at maybe marine wildlife as well as the land-based tours?
It is a little bit limited at the moment. We've had a few operators come and go, unfortunately, but there's 2 main dive operators that have been in operation for quite some time now. They more focus on the diving, but they do offer snorkeling trips when they're not full with divers. They'll run separate trips for snorkeling. You can also book a charter type service. One of them was running champagne tours and things in the evening. But yeah, and such as a wildlife spotting, it's not often that we have that opportunity to be able to offer that. And certainly we've got an island where if it's calm on one side, it's rough on the other. So there's not really any sort of boat trips that circumnavigate the island. It's very few days of the year that you could actually do that.
Great, okay. Frank is also asking about marine life. I know you mentioned you can see whale sharks around Christmas Island, but are there any other whales that you can see in destination there?
Not really. Several years ago, we had a really strange anomaly of some humpbacks hanging around for the month of August, and it happened like 2009, 2011 and 2013, and we haven't had them back since. So it's not anything that we can offer as a staple sightseeing opportunity. But it is one of those random things. One of the dive operators, he has actually seen orcas here, but that was a very random thing. And I did see one of the questions asked about great whites. We're too high up. We're way too warmer water for the great whites. So, yeah, none of those sort of big dangerous-y ones around here. We do get some tigers, a little bit too inquisitive, but yeah, that's probably about the worst that we have around here.
All right, thank you. I think we've got a question for you here, John, from Suzanne. Are any of the wildlife journeys experiences suitable for people that have minor mobility issues?
Yeah, the majority of our land experiences I would recommend, and particularly the private charters if the client has that budget to spend. The majority of our land tour members are experienced with I guess offering that accessible tourism as an option and have dealt with, I think, all sorts of clients, whether that be sort of wheelchair limited. But what I would say is we can cater those trips to, the duration of walking on tour. So most of them are sort of soft adventure in nature, so you don't need to be extremely fit to do our wildlife tours, but we can cater it. So there's a little bit more driving or, we customise the itinerary accordingly.
Okay, great. Tony, we've got another question for you. Is it possible to fish on the Murray River as part of the tour that you offer?
We don't encourage it, and the reason being that typically it requires loading gear onto the boat, onto the houseboat like rods. I guess creating a place where people can bank, and often that can tie up one of our guides. So we don't encourage it, but we have had in the past travellers who were not able to do the walking part of our tour, our Murray River Walk, and so where they've stayed on the houseboat all day and travelled up with the driver, we've made allowances for them to be able to fish. So they've got an activity that works for them while everyone else is out on the journey walking.
Okay, great. And how long is the trip on the Murray River?
So, there's 2 tours. We run Murray River Walk, which is a 4-day, 3-night tour. And we run Murray River Safari, slightly shorter, multimodal, 3 days and 2 nights. And on both of those tours, the accommodation is on a luxury houseboat, maximum group size, 5 double rooms, each with an ensuite.
Okay, thanks. And Suzanne has got a question for Lisa. How long would you recommend staying on Christmas Island? And actually, I might add my own in there. How do you actually get there from Australia?
Okay, so we probably recommend minimum 7 days. You can cover quite a bit in a casual manner. We've got quite a few walking trails and things like that. And with the humidity, you don't want to try and jam too much in the day. So go out for your walk or go to the waterfall in the cooler part of the morning, and then come back and have a snorkel in the Cove in the afternoon, or go and take some lunch to a beach somewhere and relax a little bit. So a week allows you to pretty much cover everything at a nice pace. We've got 2 flights a week at the moment with Virgin Australia. They operate on a Tuesday and a Friday. So the Tuesday comes up direct to Christmas Island. You can also combine it with our sister island, Cocos Keeling, and the following Tuesday fly on to there. And on the Friday, it flies up to Cocos first and then across to Christmas and then back down to Perth. So it does a couple of triangles out of Perth, but that's with Virgin Australia on a Tuesday and a Friday.
Okay, thank you. We haven't got long left, so I'm just going to whiz through the last few questions that we've got in the chat here, just to make sure that we cover them off. Tony, Sharon's asking if the Murray River Safari is suitable for families, and if so, what ages is it suitable for?
Yeah, so we have had some small family groups. Minimum age is 12 years old. So, and that's both on our safari tour and our walk tour. But if you had younger members of the family, we would need you to book that tour exclusively, and we would have a rate for that.
Okay, thanks. And Lisa, do you know if it's possible to go fishing off Christmas Island or as well?
Yeah, look, we've got plenty of hikes around the island, so you can actually just throw a line off the side of the island. We've got a great jetty as well for fishing squid and whatnot there. We've got fishing operators. They're a little bit tricky to try and get on our books as such, but I'm more than happy, if people are booking the packages with me, I'm more than happy to put them in touch directly with the fishing operator to work out a good time and get them out on the water while they're here.
Okay, thanks. And John, I'm just going to finish off with a question for you. Who was asking? We had a question about, is there a map or anywhere that agents can see all the Australian wildlife journeys in one place and see where they are and how they might tie them in together?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few options. We have our brochure that should be in our virtual room, so you can download the map of members there. Alternatively, it's also on our AustralianWildlifeJourneys.com/trade page, so you can download both those documents. And in addition to that, all the Tourism Australia Trade Hub assets, it's also in there, along with the other signature experiences.
Brilliant. Thank you very much to you, John, and to also Lisa and Tony for answering everyone's questions today. It's been really valuable. I'm sure everyone's learned a lot. So thank you.